Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So, Marjorie Taylor Greene, or as I prefer to call her, QAnon Karen, is pure evil. She's pure evil and pure trash. Anytime something comes up about her, all I can think of is that scene from the movie About Last Night, not the Kevin Hart remake, the original one with Demi Moore and what's his name? Where Jim Belushi tells Elizabeth Perkins that if she didn't have how could I say it nicely, a meow between her legs, that there'd be a bounty on her head. That's exactly what I think of when I think of Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm sorry, but this woman is a hateful, ignorant bigot who has no business being in a position of power. So here's the deal. Here's what she's done now. This week, the House was debating the Equality Act, which would prohibit discrimination based on someone's gender identity and sexual orientation. You would think that would be a no-brainer, but no, not for this bigot. So Democratic House member Marie Newman, who happens to have a transgender daughter, stood up and gave a very emotional speech in favor of the act. Obviously, because this is very personal for her. After Newman finished, Greene stood up and gave her own speech in opposition of the bill, calling it, quote, disgusting, immoral, and evil, and blah, 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 something about taking away women's rights and taking away people's religious freedoms. Oh my God, she's so vile. Then Greene tried to adjourn the House in an effort to block the vote and the passage of the bill. Luckily, she was unsuccessful, but that's not where this story ends. That's not the most outrageous things that she did. Apparently, the two women have offices directly across the hall from each other, and following Greene's transphobic display, Newman decided to erect a transgender flag outside of her office. In fact, she recorded it and posted the video on Twitter, and she said in part, quote, our neighbor, Marjorie Taylor Greene, tried to block the Equality Act, thought we'd put up our transgender flag so she can look at it every time she opens her door. Now, yes, I get it. It was snarky, but Greene is a horrible person, and she deserves it. Because in response, Greene decided to denigrate Newman's daughter and denied the biological fact that she's a female. And yes, for anyone listening, there is a biological component to transgenderism, which I'll explain in just a minute. But first, here's what QAnon Karen did in retaliation. So she posted a sign next to her office door, a large sign saying, quote, there are two genders, male and female. Trust the science, exclamation point. So, wow. I mean, first of all, the overwhelming and obvious hypocrisy in that sign is just unreal. Trust the science? The anti-masker, COVID denying, climate change denying, conspiracy theorist is telling other people to trust the science. Okay. You first, QAnon Karen. Then she took it a step further. Not only did she do that, I would get if she just did that and it was tit for tat, right? But no, she has to stoop even lower because that's the kind of scum she is. She posted on Twitter a picture of her sign with the following. As mothers, we all love and support our children, but your biological son does not, all in capitals by the way, belong in my daughter's bathrooms, locker rooms, and sports teams. Oh my God. So beyond the fact that she doesn't know how to properly use an apostrophe to signify possession, if you're on YouTube, you know what I mean. In the word daughters, she put the apostrophe after the S. I really question whether or not Greene actually would support and love her children unconditionally. I mean, if one of her kids, and God help them with this kind of closed-minded, bigoted trash as a mom, but if one of her poor children announced in the future that they were gay or bisexual, transgender, or anything else that Green doesn't have the capacity and intelligence to understand because apparently science is too hard, how would she handle it? Which manager would Flat Earth QAnon Karen complain to about something like that? How do you live on this earth for over 40 years without knowing so much, without having a clue? As I mentioned, there is a biological component to being transgender. So perhaps Green is the one who should start trusting the science. According to Harvard scientists, one way to know whether something is genetic or environmental is to review how it shows up in twins. Identical twins, of course, share the identical DNA, whereas fraternal twins, which are non-identical twins, share only 50% of the same DNA. So they've looked at transgenderism in twins, and what they found is that identical twins tend to be transgender at a much higher rate than fraternal twins. You could say, all right, well, that's just a coincidence. The fact that they share the same DNA and they both end up being transgender and they're identical twins with the same DNA, that's just a coincidence. Okay, well, let's look at this. In addition to that, scientists have studied two different areas of the brain. These areas greatly differ between men and women. If you look at the cluster of the cells, if you look at the size of these areas, you can tell just by looking at the images, one is a man, one is a woman. That's how much they differ, okay? These two areas of the brain. What they found is that transgender females, meaning people who were identified as a male upon birth, they have the genitalia of a male, they look like a male to everyone else, but they feel as if they're a female. So transgender females, their brains, these two areas of their brains, are actually identical to that of a female, not a male. So even though they look like a male to everyone else, their brain is structured and set up as a female. Likewise, transgender men, meaning people who were born in the body of a female with the genitalia of a female, but they feel more like a man and think more like a man. These two areas of the brain, one of which is referred to as the bed of nucleus of the stria terminalis, these areas identify these transgender men as men. Their brains are identical, are set up and look like that of a man. So it's not a matter of influence or choice. They literally think and feel the opposite of what their body and sexual organs reflect. And scientists have established that this can sometimes be caused by a failure of certain hormones passing from the mother to the child during pregnancy. And Harvard explained that sometimes the mother is just lacking enough of these hormones to adequately supply the baby. Other times what happens is, and this happens more frequently in transgender men, the fetus is unable to absorb and process enough estrogen or whatever the hormones may be. But as I said, it's more common in transgender men. So although their bodies create the female genitalia, everything on the outside looks female, while that baby is in the womb, their estrogen receptors, for whatever reason, are unable to fully receive the signals sent by the mother. So their brain develops and forms into that of a male. Therefore, although the world sees them as a female and they have the genitalia of a female, they literally feel and think more like a man or vice versa. and they feel as if they're trapped in someone else's body. So I shared a Harvard article, by the way, about this whole thing with Green on Twitter. Maybe she can get someone to read it to her and explain the words that are too big, you know, that are larger than 2 syllables. And she and others like her are constantly talking about their personal rights, their liberty. But when it comes to other people's personal rights and liberty, they don't want to give an inch. God forbid if someone wants to live their truth. God forbid if someone wants to feel comfortable in their own body and be treated in the way that they feel inside and by the sex that they identify with. God forbid someone who feels like a woman wants to be able to go in and use the bathroom with other women because they feel uncomfortable using the bathroom with men because they don't feel like a man. Jesus Christ. These people are absolute 100% off the charts, hypocrites, level 11. This one goes to 11. So, all right, guys. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care, and I will talk with you soon.